History, Stalin, Chapter 6, Last Testament. With Lenin on his deathbed, Stalin maneuvers for power. As the Civil War came to an end, the Bolsheviks backed away from the harsh policies of war communism. 7 years of war had left the people exhausted, starving, and angry. More than 3 million Russians had died in World War I. Millions more perished in the Civil War, and most of the dead were civilians. Protests broke out around the country and forced the Bolsheviks to act. In March 1921, Lenin approved the New Economic Policy, or NEP, to quiet the protesters. The NEP abolished war communism and permitted small business owners to operate without government control. It allowed peasants to trade surplus grain instead of giving it all to the government. Workers were given shorter hours and paid in cash instead of goods. Lenin's new policy helped to stabilize Russia, soon to be renamed the Union of Soviet Social Republics, USSR. But in the meeting halls of Moscow, a battle was about to begin for control of the Bolshevik Party. The outcome of that battle would determine the future of the Soviet Union for decades to come. In March 1922, Lenin was partially paralyzed by a stroke. Doctors ordered him to rest in his home in a suburb of Moscow, and Stalin helped coordinate his medical care. Lenin tried to run the party from his sickbed, but he no longer had the last word. With Lenin's death imminent, other Bolshevik leaders maneuvered for position. The Politburo, the top leader of the party, included Stalin, Trotsky, Grigory Zinoviev, Lev Kamenev, and Lenin. Stalin was elected general secretary of the party, the top office, but Trotsky was widely considered to be Lenin's second in command. Unlike Stalin, Trotsky was a powerful speaker and a charismatic leader, and the Bolsheviks considered him a hero for leading the Red Army to victory over the Whites during the Civil War. To fight Trotsky's influence, Stalin began to maneuver behind the scenes. He installed devoted followers at all levels of the Communist Party. He packed the secret police and other party organizations with people he could trust. He charmed lower officials with his teasing humor and close attention. Comrades' requests were often answered with a written note: "I am ready to help you and receive you." Most importantly, he made sure that his allies were rewarded for obedience. He arranged housing and distributed gifts. Before long, the Communist Party was filled with people who owed their careers and their livelihoods to Stalin. He and some fellow party members would soon make good use of their loyalty. In January 1924, Lenin died after suffering another stroke. Stalin managed the funeral and turned it into a public spectacle. Lenin's body was moved to Moscow's Red Square and put on display. Later, Stalin and some fellow party members arranged for the corpse to be chemically preserved and exhibited permanently. But there was one part of Lenin's death that Stalin could not control. All the Bolshevik leaders knew that Lenin had written out his final instructions for the party. The document had become known as Lenin's Testament. At a meeting in May, Stalin sat grim-faced while the testament was read aloud to the party's leaders. Lenin warned that a power struggle following his death could destroy the revolution. He insisted that there was no single member of the party fit to succeed him. Trotsky was too arrogant. Stalin was too rude. Others were weak politicians or poor thinkers. In the end, Lenin recommended that his comrades share power between them, and he called for the removal of Stalin from his position as general secretary. In his place, Lenin said, the party should appoint someone more patient, more loyal, more courteous, and more attentive to comrades. These words could have meant the end of Stalin's career, but thanks to his gang of loyal party members, he not only survived, but thrived. For the next 3 years, he publicly shared power with the other members of the Politburo. Privately, he schemed to get rid of his main rivals. Trotsky, Zinoviev, and Kamenev. He installed a phone in his desk that allowed him to eavesdrop on their phone calls. He sent secret police to spy on their allies. In November 1927, Stalin struck. His allies voted Trotsky, Kamenev, and Zinoviev out of the party. 2 years later, Stalin forced Trotsky to leave the country entirely. The warning was clear to friend and foe alike. Anyone who opposed the general secretary risked losing their job, or worse.